Welcome back. In this episode, it's all about upgrades. First, we step up technology with powerful new quantum circuits. Then we upgrade our furnaces with Naquadah Coils. And finally, we harness the power of the sun with solar generators. This is Star Technology. Let's get into it. So since the last episode, I've been doing a little bit of work around the base. It's a little bit darker in here because I've started to fill in the upper level because we're going to need that space for when we build the fusion reactors. We're going to need a whole bunch of them of all different types because we're going to want a lot of different outputs that the fusion reactor produces. And we just did not have any space in this part of the factory or out here. It was just not suitable. So each of these sort of cells here, that's 11 units inside that square, we're going to need 15. So that's quite a lot bigger. And several of them stacked next to each other, maybe even vertically. We'll see how it works out. Having to think ahead because the fusion reactor is probably going to be in a few episodes' time. Other things I've been doing around the base is just kind of cleaning up some of the aesthetics. That's something I like to do occasionally, as I've mentioned previously. So I've been putting in these kind of barriers around the place and expanding these areas and also putting in these lights. I love these lights because it was getting dark in here. So these actually serve a practical purpose as well as aesthetic. So without them, it was kind of dim. And I'll probably use that design elsewhere in the base. I've built a few more of these multi-blocks. So this one here is the large electromagnet. So we're using that now with the parallel control hatch instead of the polarizer. This could actually be used in two different modes. So it can be an electromagnetic separator or a polarizer. Never use the electromagnetic separator. It's one of the other ways you can process ore under certain conditions, but I've never had to use it. So over here we have a couple more machines. So we have the large crystallization chamber. So this works as an autoclave. And over here we have the large extraction machine, which works as an extractor. Oh, one other thing. No one's actually commented on this, but I didn't actually mention it in any of my videos. All this stuff here, hanging off the side, this orange stuff, and then this tank and stuff, this is all aesthetic. It's not, actually serves no purpose at all, but I thought distillation towers by themselves were just really boring looking. And even these bits up here, these stainless steel frames, I just chucked them on top to kind of give it like a bit more of a industrial look because I wanted this to look like an oil refinery. And so that's why I created these walkways and things. So something that I've been trying to do around the base is make it accessible to people just walking around that don't have jet boots. So that's why I've put these ladders in places and then these railings and, trying to kind of think about what sort of safety precautions they'd take if this was like an actual oil refinery. So you've got the chain link fences and warning signs and things like that. And then you need to go over here to the distillation towers to do some maintenance. That's why we've got walkways over here, places to store tools. And it feels a bit more real. I enjoy doing it. I mean, clearly I don't need to do this at all for progression. I can just ignore this, but I don't know. I just find it fun. It makes the base look a lot nicer, in my opinion. And I'm sort of learning new building techniques. One more thing is I have updated the tower. So this is the monolith that I was doing back. I stopped, episode 13 or something. Haven't bothered to add anything to it. I realized that was probably a mistake because it is kind of cool to see where we're at. So that represents all the episodes that I've done so far in this series. And when I started this channel, I wasn't sure how long I was going to be going with this. Maybe 1 or 2 or 3 episodes, but no, we've been at it for this long. All the way up to the latest ones with polyphenylene sulfide and rhodium-plated palladium. There's a few blocks missing there. I need to... Netherite is so slow to craft. I need to get some more in there. Okay, looks like I've got enough. I think I've talked enough about that stuff. I want to move on with this episode. So the next thing I want to talk about is some game settings that I've changed. This is the experience that I've been having lately in terms of frame rate. I'll zoom in on the thing in the corner and probably put it somewhere so it can be more visible because I'm not sure if the effect on the frame rate will be visible in the actual videos. When you're in areas like this, there's not much going on, far away from the base, the frame rate's pretty good, pretty stable. Now, as soon as I turn around, I start to lose a lot of frames. It's been getting worse over time and it's becoming very difficult to play when facing certain different directions. As we go over here, Looking at this thing, everything's fine. So turn around. This section here is terrible. I've been living with it and it's been getting worse slowly, and I needed to figure out what it was. I decided to do some debugging. So most people know if you hit F3, then you can bring up this menu here, which gives you a bit of debug information. It's quite useful for telling what direction you're facing. I'll zoom in on it on the left there, but at the moment it says I'm facing west, now I'm facing south, now I'm facing east. So that can help with placement of pushers and pullers that you need to specify a direction. Now, the other thing that's useful is that if you hold down Shift and hit F3, it brings up a little pie chart in the corner there. Now that actually gives you information about like what's taking up the time to actually generate each frame. What you may not realize is that you can actually drill into some of those categories and get more information. And the way you do that is by pressing the number keys that correspond to the numbers next to them. On the chart at the moment, it says that 89% of the time is taken up by the game renderer. So if I press 1 and go into that, it's showing me that 95% of the game renderer is in the level. So if I drill into that, 90% of that is terrain setup. So if we keep going, 99% of that time is chunk updates. So it seems like chunk updates are the problem that I'm facing. What I think is actually happening, these GregTech machines, when they are turning on and off, here's a good example. So the oak logs aren't coming in quick enough. This machine's turning on, doing its thing, and turning off. I think, from what I've read, that triggers a chunk update. The problem is multiplying across all these machines. So I've got lots of machines doing chunk updates constantly. I was having a look at the settings, and there is actually something that you can do about this. And I decided to give it a try. Under performance, there's a thing where you can set the number of chunk update threads. So that's how many threads are used for chunk updating. I played with that, didn't make any difference. But there's also this option, always defer chunk updates. As the tooltip there says, if enabled, rendering will never wait for chunk updates to finish, even if they're important. They can greatly improve frame rates in some scenarios, but it can create significant visual lag in the world. So I'm like, okay, what's that? So if I turn that on and apply it, look at this. It's much, much faster. It definitely was the chunk updates that were causing it. Now, what I think is happening is without that setting turned on, the renderer is waiting for all the chunk updates to finish, and that's contributing to the visual lag. Now, I'm sure I'll get roasted in the comments because, I don't know, there'll be some consequence of that, which is going to break everything, I'm sure. But maybe some experienced players who are aware of that setting and what the consequences might be could chime in the comments. But yeah, I'm going to leave it on like this. Another thing I've actually played with briefly, I'm still deciding on, is shaders. So I haven't been playing with the shaders like any special shaders turned on. This is just default Minecraft. And I'm not sure how I feel about the shaders because it changes the look of the game drastically. I mean, it looks nicer. I've been playing so far with this. Maybe in the next series that I play, maybe I'll start with the shaders turned on. I think it's too much of a difference at this point. Bit jarring. Enough talk about non-star technology stuff. Let's get into it. What are we going to do next? I can't even remember. So I think the next thing we want to tackle is probably these quantum processors, because they're much quicker to build than the other current tier, which are the blue ones. We should probably look into that. As you can see from the recipe there, it requires the fiber reinforced printed circuit board. So the fiber reinforced printed circuit board is made from a fiber reinforced circuit board and annealed copper foil, as well as some kind of etching solution, sodium persulfate, iron 3 chloride, or cupric chloride. We've got the cupric chloride, so we'll use that. So how do we make fiber reinforced circuit boards? With a reinforced epoxy resin sheet and some sulfuric acid and annealed copper foil. That seems pretty easy in the chemical reactor. But how do we make the reinforced epoxy resin sheet? So there's two different recipes we can use. You can make it with raw carbon fibers and liquid epoxy, or borosilicate glass fibers and liquid epoxy. Raw carbon fibers we already have, because they're pretty easy to make. It's just carbon dust in the autoclave. Actually, oh wow, I can change my recipe. So we probably want to change it for this recipe here because it produces much more. Anyway, sorry, I'm getting distracted. The point is there's two different ways to make it. Now, borosilicate glass fibers are actually kind of complicated to make because you need to make a borosilicate glass bar, which in itself is made alloy blast smelter recipe, glass, and boron, program circuit 8. So we don't have a alloy blast smelter on program circuit 8. Even though in the quest log, it hints that basically your only option is to go borosilicate glass fibers because this is not an optional one. We're not going to do that. We're going to go carbon fiber. I mean, it seems a lot simpler. So let's do that. Can probably set up some recipes for those fibers then. We'll go with this one. So that's that recipe. And then this recipe here, sulfuric acid, that's incorrect. 0.125. We don't make annealed copper foil, apparently. It's a bit silly. And then there's that. So we have the cupric chloride. That looks all correct. Cool. Just a couple of things I need to set up there. The annealed copper foil. Nice and easy. Just annealed copper and thing like that. Okay, so that's a chemical bath to make the reinforced epoxy resin sheet. And then chemical reactor to make that. Then a chemical reactor to make that. Okay, cool. So we're going to need to make a chemical bath. I don't have one currently. Where's my chemical reactor? It is this one. Yep. Okay, so pop those two in there. And now I just need to create a chemical bath somewhere. We do have one. Maybe we'll just use that for starters. We've got the elite chemical bath over here. Where's that? Over here. So I'll pop that into there. Yep, that should work. Let's give that a go. Let's see if I can make one of those resin sheets. Yep, that worked. And so I should be able to request some of those circuit boards. That looks correct. Come over here and just make sure it's doing its thing. No. It's going to be a program circuit issue, isn't it? Ah, requires a clean room. Okay, yep. That's cool. So this one here requires a clean room. The others don't, which is weird. So that should work. What happened to it? Oh, I made it. Oh, it's super quick. Make a few more to make sure. Okay, yeah, that's very quick at making those. That's really useful. Fiber reinforced circuit boards, done. That means we can now go into here and make this. So I already have a process for that. I already encoded it. It's all ready to go. I've got one of those and one of those. So trigger those quests. So the qubit CPU wafer was actually pretty easy to make. We just needed to put it into a chemical reactor in the clean room, which, as you just saw, I have. It's just a nano CPU wafer with some indium gallium phosphide dust and some radon. Or, alternatively, you can actually do this for other recipe that uses quantum-eyes instead, and something called liquid gallium arsenide, which is a bit quicker, but quantum-eyes are a bit slow to make, and so this seems a lot quicker, and quantum-eyes are expensive. So we have those two, which means now, we tick that off, we can actually come to this bit here, I think. So this requires an IV circuit assembler, which we do have. Basically, this is just like all the other chips that we've ever worked with. It's just some kind of a circuit board, a bunch of other bits and pieces. So some of these we'll use, some of these we won't. We'll use this recipe here because it's got the advanced components. Yeah, so I'll be making that. Then there's the IV tier 1 and then the LUV tier 1. I'll encode those recipes and essentially we'll just replace all of these, which is pretty exciting. So I'll do that and come back. I've encoded those recipes. So we've got the quantum processor, processor assembly, processor supercomputer. But I also noticed there's the quantum processor mainframe. So that is actually a ZPM circuit. So even though it stops here, there is actually another one. Because each of those tiers seems to require the previous one, so the ZPM tier circuit actually requires the other ones. If I make one of these, it will prove that they all work. So let's give that a go. The very last step, making the annealed copper wire. Here we go. 5 seconds. Wow. Okay. Oh, that's really cool. So now we can make ZPM circuits, as well as having recipes that are quicker for all the other ones. So LUV, IV, and EV. Guess I can take these out then, these three. I might have to re-encode some recipes because I think it tends to use those specific ones. Yeah, that's exactly what I thought. That's a little bit annoying. Those issues will crop up as I go. Oh, well, yeah, I'll fix that over time. Okay, well, let's make some Naquadah coil blocks because we actually have quite a lot of Naquadah now. As you can see, like 60,000. Let's code that recipe. Are those numbers correct? They are. We don't have either of those two things. Osmium foil, that shouldn't be too hard to make. That's just in the bender with one of those guys, like that. Done. And now the Naquadah wire in the wire mill like that. And then the Naquadah coil block. That was just an assembler, wasn't it? Yes, with liquid tungsten steel, which I think I had already. Yep. All right, let's put that into an assembler, LUV assembler. So I guess this one over here, because this is running at ZPM power. Oh, hang on. Only IV recipe tier though. Why is that? Because this has an IV 16 amp energy hatch. Okay, that needs to be upgraded. I need to put a 4 amp LEV hatch in there. Glad I checked that. Okay, let's do that now. Okay, so done a little bit of rewiring, upgraded this to an LEV 4 amp energy hatch, which has taken this up to ZPM power tier and LEV recipe tier, which is what we need to do the Naquadah coil. So let's order one, see if this works. $18 seconds. Oh, wow. Okay. That wasn't too bad. Yeah, that makes sense, I guess, because it's LUV, and so taking up to ZPM is 17.5 seconds. So next up, indium tin barium titanium cuprate ingot. That is a mouthful. So what's the recipe for that? Doing it in a vacuum freezer with helium gas, probably the molten recipe, alloy blast melter, circuit 16. Argon and oxygen. Okay. Naquadah coil required. All right. So if we're going to be making that, we're going to be upgrading this guy, because this is the circuit 16 one, I think. So currently there's only a few things in there. So let's encode that recipe. This guy here, 14 buckets of oxygen. That's a lot. Produces a lot of this stuff, and that's very slow. Okay, well, none of these have come up correct. 2, so that's 2 of that. I think there was 2 of that as well. 7 of these. 14 buckets of oxygen. And 0.8 of argon gas. That sounds about right. Okay, encode that. Oh, hang on. Yeah, I just remembered. I have to do it as ingots. How many ingots are we going to get out of that? So I guess we just count them up. So that's, oh gosh, okay. Do we include the 14 buckets of oxygen though? So there's 8 and 8, so 16. Is it going to be 16 of these? Let's try that. All right, let's put it in the machine and then see what happens. We're going to need those Naquadah coils before we can go any further. So how many of those are we going to need? What? Not 57. Oh. Okay. Have I set this up such a way that I'm going to have to upgrade all of these to Naquadah? Because it's going to be sharing some of the blocks. I may have made a mistake there. Oh, okay. Interesting. All right, well, if I was doing it normally, it'd be 12 plus 12 is 24. So let's order enough to actually upgrade this one. So we need another 20. Now, I wonder what do we use this one for? Maraging steel, watertight steel, 0 and 100. Okay, we don't even use those at the moment. So if this was broken temporarily because it was trying to share coils that are incompatible, that would be fine. I'd be okay with that. And then we can upgrade these later. The Naquadah coil blocks are done, so let's install them. All right, so that was 23 blocks. There's one missing somewhere. There it is. All right, so should just be able to put these in. All right, so this should have formed. Yep, and this won't have. Yep, because of that overlap. So once we have much more of these Naquadah coils, we'll just go through and just replace all of these. But as I mentioned, this one here is going to be out of commission temporarily, but that's not a big deal. What's this here? Yeah, this is all pretty important. So I'm going to have to replace all the rest in a big batch. I wonder how many that is. 45 plus 45. That's 90. All right, so I better queue up 90 more Naquadah coil blocks. But in the meantime, I should be able to run this indium, tin, barium, titanium cuprate ingots. But do we want to upgrade this while we're here? Because that's going to take a long time, those ingots. So it's going to take 600 seconds. So improving that would be useful. Yeah, okay. You've convinced me. I might as well upgrade this to LUV energy hatches. Let's do some minor renovations here. Do that. And that should be back up and running, but as ZPM. Nice. All right. Let's order one of these. Yeah, that's cool. It's going to make 16. 101 seconds. That's not too bad. We're getting, what, 16 ingots out of it, potentially, if I did my maths right. It's using a load of power, though. Look at that. 116,000 EUs per tick, which is going to be making a dent in this power over here now. Yeah, look at that. Wow. That's quite a big jump. So we are definitely going to need to upgrade our power. So I think that completed. There we go. There's our 16 ingots. That's pretty exciting. So we can grab that ingot, get that ticked off. And this one. Cool. So I spent a bit of time building a lot more of those Naquadah coils, and I have finally upgraded all of the alloy blast melters. So they're all set up and working. I've also put a little bit of decoration here. Making the Naquadah coils took a really long time, so I got bored, started to tinker with things in the base. Like, for example, I've moved the vacuum freezer over here, just tucked out of the way, so that I could build some platforms above. And then I've also built the chemical bath. I had a lot of time to kill while I was waiting for those Naquadah coils. During the time that it was running, it almost completely drained my power. So we probably need to look at upgrading it. So we can keep adding high-octane gasoline-powered compression dynamos, but I don't think that's going to be sustainable. What we probably need to look at is alternate power things, and this solar section here is probably the way to go. Basically free energy, you hook up a thing to it and it just generates power. In Star Technology, they come in 6 different flavors: basic, regular, intermediate, advanced, elite, and ultimate. I haven't bothered with them at any stage because they're just not worth it until you kind of get to ultimate, I think. So the basic solar generator produces 1 FE per tick, which is just laughable. And then the next one is 10. And so 10, 100, 1,000, etc. So this gets to up to 100,000 per tick, which means to replicate what we have down there, we're going to need 2.4. Yeah, so we're going to need 24 panels. So that's not too bad. Like, you put them in an array. So that's the size of one of these squares, really. So that's 5 by 5. Every time that we tech up to a new power tier, it's 4 times the energy required. So we're going to have to keep expanding. So we probably need an array that's about the size of this path here to keep us going for a little while. What's involved in making solar panels? Well, you got to make these energy cores and then make these solar cells from those, and then you actually make a generator. And to do all that, you need an energy assembler. Let's have a look at what we might need. For an ultimate solar cell, we need the multi-layer fiber reinforced printed circuit boards, ultimate energy core, LEV circuits, glass panes, and niobium titanium cable and liquid soldering alloy. Ah, my friend. That was always going to come back to bite me, my comments in the last video, wasn't it? Once we have those, ultimate solar generator is pretty simple. Double rhodium plated palladium plate. Wow, that's a mouthful. Some silicon wafers, ultimate solar cells, and then liquid soldering alloy. Oh my God. Oh, geez. Yep. Eating my own words, aren't I? So we're going to need some of these multi-layer fiber reinforced printed circuit boards. All of the multi-layer boards need to be done in the clean room, but they're not too difficult. They're just made from the reinforced circuit board, is made with platinum foil and cupric chloride. And then the multi-layer boards are just 2 of the fiber reinforced circuit boards with sulfuric acid and palladium foil. What is the ultimate energy core then? We'll start at the other end. What's a basic energy core? Basic energy core is just a silicon wafer, some capacitors, diodes, glass panes, tin cable, and liquid soldering alloy. Silicon wafers are pretty primitive. I had to actually resurrect the old process I had for making those because I got rid of it when we went to phosphorus doped wafers because we didn't need it anymore. So I've just had to reinstate that. Once you have the basic energy core, you then need to upgrade it to a regular energy core. So the way you do that is by using an energy assembler. So you can see that you put the basic energy core in and it charges it with power and it becomes a regular energy core. And then you rinse and repeat that for each subsequent step. So unfortunately, we have to make a lot of basic energy cores and then upgrade them all the way down the chain to get to the ultimate energy core. I've built the energy assembler, which looks like this, made in an assembler, cobalt rods, tempered glass, capacitors, solar-infused wire, diodes, and more of that liquid soldering alloy. I've only got one of those currently. I'll probably build a few just so that we can accelerate this process, like have a bunch going in parallel. I'll see how slow it is to actually do the energy upgrade. So let's install this energy assembler. See how this works. Plug it in somewhere. Let's just try here, because if it does explode, there's nothing important around. Okay, that didn't explode. Did I put this in here? Okay, so it's in there, but that's obviously not providing power to it. So that's not going to work. Okay, can I get that back out? Or is that now trapped in there? Okay, I can get that back out. Cool. All right. That's not providing power, but I can probably use a flux point, can't I? All right. Since we don't need that power, we can put it anywhere, can't we? Let's put them up here. So let's do that. Put a flux point on top. Let's give this a go. Oh, there we go. Well, that's how it works, right? Now we have a regular energy core. And then we just put that same thing in there. Intermediate energy core. Advanced energy core. And then elite energy core, and then ultimate energy core. Cool. All right. Each time it was taking a little bit longer, it was using more power, but obviously this thing can supply it so quickly. So I'll hook up a pattern provider to that, see if we can actually make it work with a pattern provider. So if I do that, then run some cable from down there. So if I request, say, 16 of these, is that going to work? Okay, so we need something to extract them. Extended import bus. And then put some accelerator cards in there. Okay, that worked. If I pop all of those into there, is this thing going to be quick enough? Let's say one ultimate. Okay, well, I mean, that's working. That's quick enough. I don't think I need to mess with that. We're going to need loads of them, but that's just for one. That wasn't very long to wait at all. So I've already encoded the recipe for the ultimate solar cell. So that just needs to be in the circuit assembler. So let's request one of those. It should be craftable. There we go. So we now have the ultimate solar cell. And that means the last step is the ultimate solar generator. Let's give that a go. Five seconds is not bad. There we go. I was just going to put it somewhere out here temporarily, just like a small grid of them, till we can find a permanent place for him. So I place this guy at that's now generating power. So I'm assuming that if there's a block above it, it's not going to work. Yep, producing 0. I mean, that makes sense. Just thought I'd verify. I'll make 24 more of these. That's interesting. Why don't I have any nitrogen gas? What's all my nitrogen gone? This is where the nitrogen should be. Okay, well, I guess I'm upgrading this guy, because this one's only running on EV power. Well, I'll do that and come back. A couple of quick upgrades later, this machine's now running at ZPM power. So it's producing nitrogen again. I don't know what we were doing with it, but it's obvious we're using it very quickly for something. Not sure what. So now we have a surplus, so we can produce more of these solar panels. That looks better. Wait for that to come in, and then we'll just hook this up. And then the final thing, we need a flux plug. So this is only a temporary thing. What I'm actually planning to do with this, the roof of this area here is going to be all solar panels. So I haven't built the columns in yet, but somewhere up here, we'll start the next level and it'll be all solar panels. well, as many solar panels as we need, really. So each of these cells here has 121 blocks in it. It's 11 by 11. So that's, what, 12.1 million RF per tick for each of these cells. So I think that'll keep us going for a while. How are we going with those cells? None of them have come through yet. I'll have to check my crafting. Wow, okay, that's a lot of copper foil. That is gonna take a while. Why is that so slow? This is the bender. I mean, it's quick, but it's just... Why is it starting and stopping? Oh, I know why. Those annealed copper ingots is the slow part. All we have is the arc furnace over here doing that. And that's just too slow. Look at this. That's 15 ticks. We could go to a faster one, I guess. But what I did actually want to build is the multi-block arc furnace. That's what it looks like. It's basically like one of our alloy blast smelters, but slightly less tall. Inside it has these molybdenum disilicide coil blocks. Now I just need to find a spot for it and build that and then keep going. All right, I'm running out of places to put these kind of blocks. This one needs clearance for the muffler hatch. So the large arc smelter looks like this. It's made from high temperature smelting casings. So the same stuff that the alloy blast smelters are made from. The molybdenum disilicide coil blocks, which look like this. Graphene molybdenum disilicide rings and HSLA steel. So we'll start with the energy hatch, but this time I'm going to use an LUV 4 amp energy hatch. Let's rotate that into place. Bring up the power, excellent. Place the high temperature smelting casings. So it's got a profile like this. Put the controller block in. Let's put an auto maintenance hatch and a parallel control hatch. Now we need these coil blocks like that. Now the top layer I think is just finishing off. Then a muffler hatch in the middle. Done. All right, now obviously we need inputs and outputs. So I think the input hatch is always going to have oxygen. Let's create a hatch for oxygen. And I just broke my pick. That's all right. I'll use the tungsten steel wrench instead. MV output bus. And then an LV input bus. That's all happy. Two interfaces on like that. Pattern provider, upgrade it. Tell this to have oxygen. Let's grab some of those patterns. I'll have to edit these to get rid of the oxygen. And then we just hook this up. Okay, so let's give it a go. Annealed copper. So let's do 128. See how quick that is. That is very quick. This is a nice upgrade. Let us get back to the thing we were building, which was the solar generators. Let's see if this is a little bit quicker. 24 of these. That's firing up, making the annealed copper, I'm guessing. And probably the glass as well, actually. That's looking much better. Look at that. It was taking forever to get through those before. Sometimes you have to do that. You have to check your crafts, see how they're going. If I'd left that going, it would have taken 20, 30 minutes, I think, to finish. Just by spending a bit of time building this, it's accelerated it a lot, and every future craft is going to be faster. It is worth spending time doing side quests sometimes, as annoying as they may be. All right, well, I mean, I've just got to wait for that to finish, and then I'll come back. But it seems to be doing its thing. Well, it took a little while to get them through, but we now have the 24 ultimate solar generators. So let's finish the array. Done. 2.5 million FE per tick. They all network with each other, which is kind of cool. You don't have to run any cables. And now all I've got to do is put this plug against it, like that. Looks a bit ugly, but this is only temporary. And bypass limit. And there we go. We now have another 2.5 million RF per tick. So over here, the power situation should look a lot nicer. There we go, look at that. We can just keep adding more of these. This will cover our power needs for the moment. Even if I went around and started upgrading all of these guys to like LUV hatches and things, I could just keep adding a few more of these modules. But like I said, this is only temporary. What we'll do, the long term, is to build this up and then put a roof on that contains the solar panels. Well, I think that's a good place to leave this episode. I am very happy with the progress we made. The most exciting thing for me was the fact that I solved my frame rate issues. That was giving me all kinds of grief, and I'm just glad that it's resolved now. So this episode was really about setting us up for the next phase. So we've fixed our powers. The solar power should take us right to the end game at this point. We can just keep adding more solar panels. So in the next episode, we should probably be ramping up our journey to the fusion reactors, because that's going to be very important, and the sooner we get those up and running, the better. That is something to look forward to. Thanks for watching. Reach out to your friends and tell them Posty said hi. Look after yourselves and stay tuned for the next episode. Cheers.